Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to a very large edition of the Friday Preview. It's large because it's the last home and away round in Divisions 2, 3 and 4. 2 rounds to go in Division 1, all before the EFL Choose Tap Final Series. In the words of Big Kev, I'm a little bit excited. I'm Ben Waterworth, here to go through all the games tomorrow afternoon, and helping me to do that, as he does every week, is DC Sting himself. Very good afternoon to Dan Cencic.
Yeah, thank God it's Friday. Very good afternoon to you, Ben, and to all the listeners out there. Can't wait to get stuck into this one.
And good to have the man who milks cows for a living back here in the EFL house in the Friday Preview, Peter Baird.
Good afternoon to you, Ben Waterworth. We will attempt to make this as most accurate edition of the Friday Preview we can do after we copped a little bit of stick early in the week on the EFL Forum.
What are you talking about, Pete? It's always accurate here on the Friday Preview. Let's have a look at Division 4 to start proceedings. Peter Baird, it's Sylvan taking on Kilsyth. Sylvan look cemented in that third spot, but they'd like a win just for a little bit more cement.
They would like to carry some momentum into the Division 4 Choose Tap Final Series this year. They are third on the ladder, and this week they take on a Kilsyth team who are in ninth position. They've had 4 wins this year, Kilsyth, and they've had good service out of guys like Jordan Chenhall. He's kicked 26 goals for the year. Last week he kicked a couple in their win over Park Orchards by 12 points. Hamish Hosking in the ruck. He's been fantastic for the Kilsyth side. But Sylvan, they're just going from strength to strength. They've really found their feet in Division 4. Dan Tui's been a powerhouse for them up forward. Kicked 10 goals a couple of weeks ago. Only a couple last week, but Sylvan were very impressive in their win. 21-point victory over Eastern Lions. Ash Froud, he kicked 11 and followed up with 7 last week. He's in fantastic form. Adam Ewing's been great going through the middle. Rhett Newell's been a rock for them down back. Sylvan Footy Club, They've discovered what it takes to be successful in Division 4 in the Eastern Football League, having come across from the Yarra Valley a couple of years ago. They're now setting themselves to play finals, and I reckon Chris Goodlett's men will get the job done tomorrow against Kilsyth up there at the Sylvan Recreation Reserve. It might be a bit cold up the mountain, and I reckon Sylvan will turn the heat up, though, because they're in fine form at the moment.
Kilsyth is certainly a much improved side, but the Sylvan story is a great one. Second last on the ladder this year. They're almost certain to finish in third spot on the ladder this year. Well done to Sylvan. They'll continue their great form and finish the home and away season on a high with a win tomorrow. A couple of weeks ago, Dan Cencic, Forest Hill and Ferntree Gully loomed as a pretty important game. Forest Hill, after their loss to South Belgrave last weekend, not certainties of playing in the Choose Tap Final Series.
Yeah, look, Forest Hill aren't certainties to play in the finals, Ben, but we have to remember last week Forest Hill did put in a really good showing against South Belgrave. They came within 20 points, and South Belgrave have smashed a lot of sides this year, so that's a real credit to Forest Hill. Players to stop, Michael Cardamone was in fantastic form last week, kicked 3 goals. Greenland was good too. Sincotta was fantastic as well. But on the flip side of the coin, for Ferntree Gully, they've got players in really good form at the moment. Paul Hagar up forward can clunk everything and kick goals. And your man, Ben Waterworth, Ryan Pearce, is absolutely blistering form at the moment. And Paul Giannopoulos has been very impressive so far this season. Look, Bernie Ryan's got Ferntree Gully up and about. And him coming in as their coach this season has really done wonders for the club. He's united the club and been able to make the team play for each other on match day, which has been very important for them, and the results have shown that. But it's 4th versus 6th on the ladder. Ferntree Gully have got too much on the line, and with Nunawading, a very winnable game this weekend against the Eastern Lions, they cannot afford to drop this one. I'm going to go for Ferntree Gully based on the fact that it's too much of an important game. They'll get home by about 2 goals.
Ferntree Gully proved last weekend, Dan, that they can match it with some of those teams in the top 5 in Division 4 with a great win over Nunawading. I think they'll prove it again tomorrow with a good win over Forest Hill and just cement their spot in the Choose Tap Final Series. I feel like we need some big-style movie music for this one. The Basin and South Belgrave clashed the Titans in Division 4, Peter Baird.
I've been waiting for this return clash since round 9 when we headed up the mountain to watch South Belgrave host the Basin. The Basin led all day, only to be challenged very late in the final quarter when South Belgrave hit the lead. The Basin bounced back there. They stole the victory. They earned it on the day, though. But what a super prelude it was to what we might see in the next few weeks. And I reckon tomorrow afternoon might be a little bit more of the same. The South Belgrave boys, they were up and about when they came into the huddle on Wednesday night. They said they may play face out the Basin 3 times in the next 5 weeks. They're not going to give too much away, but this is D-Day for the South Belgrave Saints. They can really show that they're the team that can match it with South Belgrave this week. Last week, South Belgrave had a fantastic spread of goal kickers. It's been a trait that they've really brought into their game this year. They're not relying on Lucas Appleby, but why wouldn't you? He's kicked 82 goals this year. He's in fantastic form. Last week, Mark Haley named him the best again for the South Belgrave Saints. One of only 2 players to have played every game this year in the red, white and black. The helmeted one's in fantastic form for the South Belgrave side. Stephen O'Meara, he was fantastic. Best on ground last week for the Saints. He's a player that's been around the South Belgrave Football Club for a very long time. A lot of passion, and he wants to take this club to that next level. And he really showed last week. He's lifting his game coming into finals. But the whole South Belgrave team needs to lift this week because they're taking on the irreputable force of the Basin Bears. Brent Galicio, he kicked 10 last week to take his season total to 66. Daniel Dembraber, the Phil Collins lookalike, he was in superb form going through the middle for the Basin, as was Clinton Jones and Clinton King. Will Gaither was fantastic for them. He's had a great year. And Maxi Kruger in the dreadlocks, he's in and under every week. I reckon this one will go down to the wire again, like what we saw in round 9. But I reckon when that final siren blows, this time it might be South Belgrave inflicting the first loss of the year on the Basin and going into the finals with all the momentum. South Belgrave by less than a goal for mine.
You make a very good point for the Saints tomorrow afternoon, Peter Baird, but I think a game like this is one in the midfield, and I think the Basin has the better midfield. King, Trevor Mills, Jones, as you mentioned, Maxi Kruger. I think those guys will get the Bears over the line tomorrow and make it an undefeated home and away season for the Basin. Must-win game for Nunawading out at Kunung Reserve tomorrow, Dan Cencic, as they take on the Eastern Lions.
Yeah, both sides coming off defeats last weekend. Of course, the Eastern Lions going down to Sylvan, honourably by 21 points. And, of course, Nunawading, a very poor showing against the Ferntree Gully Eagles out there at Ferntree Gully Reserve. So Nunawading really needing to bounce back this weekend. It will be interesting to see which side does bounce back this weekend, but there's stars for each side. I mean, Sam McCallum's been absolutely fantastic this year for Nunawading. 51 goals from 14 matches, and he's been named in the best 4 times, which has been good for them. Christian Holdsworth's a brilliant player for them. 10 out of 15 games he's been named in the best. Aidan Suckle's been good. Stephen Alderton, fantastic as well. But on the other side of the coin, you've got Jamie Devonish for the Eastern Lions, who's in blistering form at the moment. Daniel Vandenbroek, a great player for them. And Jason Want's fantastic for them too. I think this game's too important for Nunawading in terms of making the finals. Ahead of them on the ladder is Ferntree Gully on 9 wins and 6 losses. Nunawading are in the exact same boat with a very winnable game, tomorrow afternoon. They won't want to drop this one. The Eastern Lions can't make the finals, but I'm sure they'll be playing for pride as well. And they showed last week that they can match those better sides in Division 4. I'd love to tip the Eastern Lions, but I think Nunawading have got the experienced players to get them over the line tomorrow afternoon, and they'll win comfortably.
I agree with you, Dan. Nunawading has way too much to play for tomorrow. They should win and cement their spot in the Choose Tap final series with a win over the Eastern Lions. Peter Baird, in the words of Anthony Warlow, this is the moment for Surrey Park. Can they get a victory over Canterbury at the Canterbury Sports Ground tomorrow?
I reckon tomorrow's the day for the Panthers. Ooh. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to tip Surrey Park. I reckon they've got what it takes to defeat Canterbury tomorrow out at the Canterbury Sports Ground. Canterbury had the bye last week. It's only delaying the execution, so to speak, I believe, tomorrow afternoon. A stay of execution for the Cobras, because I reckon Surrey Park will get back on the winners list for the first time in 3 seasons tomorrow afternoon. Scott Dornouse had a great year for Surrey Park. He's kicked 11 goals. He's their leading goal kicker. But look for some of the more experienced Surrey Park players to be the ones that get this team up and get them the win. Guys like Big Baz, Rowan Cleary, he's been around the club. He's the heart and soul of the club. And look for the return of Jimmy Wright to the best players for the Surrey Park. He's been a previous captain of this footy club. He's bled for the football club over the last few years, and nothing would be sweeter for him than to savour a Surrey Park victory tomorrow afternoon. Chris Dishott, after missing the first half of the year through injury, he's been back in their best the last few weeks, and Matt Jeffries, their captain, he's good enough to get a game in nearly any other Division 4 side at the moment. He's in fantastic form. I know it's going out on a bit of a limb, Benny Waterworth, but I'm tipping the Panthers to knock off the Cobras tomorrow afternoon out at the Canterbury Sports Ground.
There's no doubt that Canterbury really do want the end of the season. They can take a few positives out of this season. Levi King is an up-and-coming young player who's one to watch, but I agree with you, Pete. I reckon tomorrow afternoon's the afternoon for Surrey Park. they'll break that winning streak, and it'll be a very large party on Saturday night. A very, very intriguing round of Division 4 action tomorrow afternoon. Cannot wait to see the results. Make sure you check out the EFL mobile web app or efl.org.au for all those results. Dan Cencic, it's Division 3 time. I cannot remember a more exciting round of Division 3 action. We've got 5 teams competing for 2 spots in the Choose Tap Division 3 final series. Cannot wait for this one. Boronia can cement their spot in the Division 3 final series in 3rd spot with a win over Chirnside Park tomorrow. You'd think they'd be able to win this game.
Oh, look, Boronia are a very good side, there's no doubt about it, and Chirnside Park have really struggled this season. I think the end of the season can't come quick enough for Chirnside Park. It's been a year to forget for them. Boronia have been in absolutely brilliant form lately. They knocked over Templestowe, who are a very good side in their own right, last weekend by, comfortably 30 points, and it's been through players like Jason Heath, who has really stood up forward this year for Boronia. I watched him a couple of weeks ago play the Glen Waverly Hawks, and he's great on the lead, can take marks and can kick goals. Lachlan McKernan's a fantastic forward for them, great backman as well. Luke Allison loves to get in and amongst it and more. Maybe an unsung hero for Boronia, but he's been named in the best 7 times, has been absolutely brilliant for them. But let's not forget Chirnside Park. They've got some really handy players in their side. Scott Hamill's been one of the few shining lights for them this season, and another one of Ben Waterworth's men, Stephen Pepping.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely fantastic backman, has really stood up this season against some pretty good forwards, and it'd be interesting to see who he's going to take. Will it be Jason Heath or will it be Lachlan McKernan if he goes forward? We know they're both very dangerous goal kickers, and Matthew Smith for Boronia is going to be very dangerous as well. 28 goals from 17 matches so far this season. Look, Dan London for Chirnside Park will want to get his hands on the footy tomorrow afternoon if Chirnside Park are any chance of winning this. He's been good for them this season, but I just think Boronia, sides who are weeks out from the finals, start to get a bit of form about themselves. Boronia have showed that all season long. Maybe Chirnside Park have tapered off a little bit more from their poor run of form lately, and Boronia will get the job done tomorrow afternoon pretty comfortably, you'd think.
Chirnside Park have been pretty impressive over the past fortnight. They've taken it up to Heathmont, and they really took it up to Warrandyte last weekend, but so close to the final series. You'd think Boronia, with 3rd spot up for grabs, they'd take this opportunity and get a good win against Chirnside Park tomorrow. Perhaps the most important game in Division 3 tomorrow, Peter Baird, is the North Ringwood and Wantirna South game. Why is it the most important?
It's important because if Wantirna South win, they will shut the door on one of the other 2 results, because no matter who wins those games, they will still remain in the finals this year in Division 3, being the Wantirna South Devils. They take on North Ringwood, and to earn their spot in the finals, they have to beat the best, which North Ringwood are and have been for the last couple of years. They still sit on top of the Division 3 ladder. They've only lost the 3 games for the year, but they want to remain there. And to do that, they know they've got the Glen Waverly Hawks breathing down their neck, and they have to beat Wantirna South out at Quamby Reserve tomorrow afternoon to get that week off in the first week of the finals. For North Ringwood, they got over the line just against the very gallant Mitchum last week by 3 points. Anthony Sharp kicked 3 goals for them. Brett Moyle, their coach, was fantastic, leading them by example. Adam Tuck returned to some of his best form, being named best on ground for North Ringwood. Maxi Melzer was fantastic, running off halfback, creating for them, being that bigger body midfielder. Matty Weeks, he's been out suspended for the North Ringwood side, and he's a bit of a loss, and it may be the opportunity that Wantirna South need to take advantage of. Remember, Wantirna South knocked off North Ringwood when they met out at Walker Reserve earlier in this year, one of the only 3 losses that North Ringwood have had. For Wantirna South, Daniel Bodome, he's in fantastic form. He kicked 7 last week to take his season tally to 46. Scott Edgecombe's been playing fantastic footy, but I reckon Andrew Teakle's the key tomorrow for the Wantirna South Devils. He may get a minding role on a player like Maxi Melzer to try and take him out of that game. Timmy Lee's been a revelation for the Devils this year, playing at that key position at centre half-back, and he's had good support through the midfield from some youngsters, guys we don't mention very often. Guys like Braden Harkness, who was in best-on-ground performance for the Devils last week. I reckon Wantirna South will take it up to North Ringwood, but at the end of the day, when the whips are cracking, I reckon North Ringwood will get over the line, and unfortunately for Wantirna South and Matty Clark's boys, knock them out of the Division 3 finals for 2012.
North Ringwood has been challenged many a times by sides this season, but constantly they've come to the challenge. They were challenged by Mitchum last weekend, but they were able to get up with another close win. I don't think it's going to happen on the weekend. According to EFL Development Manager Mark Freeman, Wantirna South has beaten North Ringwood the past 9 times. I reckon the Devils can make it 10. Daniel Bedome's kicked 46. You mentioned him then. He's playing his 200th game on the weekend. I reckon the boys will rally for Bedome, and I reckon they'll rally for each other. Wantirna South to win and to keep their Division 3 flag hopes alive. Huge day for the Wild Horse Pioneers Footy Club tomorrow afternoon, Dan. They can try and keep their hopes of staying up in Division 3 alive with a win over Warrandyte.
Yeah, D-Day for the Wild Horse Pioneers. There's no doubt about it. No better time to get back on the winners list for the Wild Horse Pioneers than this weekend after a very disappointing showing against Wantirna South last weekend. But Warrandyte had a very good win over Churnside Park. It was a close win. They were trailing by 9 points at half-time, but they managed to get up in the end. Many would argue that the White Horse Pioneers may be better off if they're relegated to Division 4 next season. I'm not so sure. I think, as BWS said on Wednesday night, there'll be a lot of fight about the White Horse Pioneers come tomorrow afternoon. I think the White Horse Pioneers will come to play tomorrow afternoon. Of course, they're going to have the new facilities next season, which are going to be up there with the best in the league. So they've gone from having the worst facilities to having the best facilities in the league. That'll be a real plus for them in season 2013 and a real incentive for them tomorrow afternoon to get up and play their best footy and get a win to avoid relegation. They've had some really handy players this season, the White Horse Pioneers. Aaron Mates has been good for them, named them the best 10 times. And Aidan Cameron's a fantastic player for them as well, named them the best 8 times. But you just can't go past Warrandyte. Another one of Ben Waterworth's men, Michael Magic Hands Morello.
Ooh, yes.
Great player for them that he is up forward. Has done a lot of work this season, kicking 54 goals. And of course, how can we forget the everywhere man, Tom Norton. Fantastic player for them on and off the field. I'd love to tip the White Horse Pioneers in this game. I think they'll be up and about, and I think it's going to be really close. But Warrandyte, they show a lot of fight week in, week out. They'll get the job done.
I've got a lot of men in the Eastern Football League, and Michael Magic Hands Morello is definitely one of them, Dan Cencic. I reckon he's set for a big day tomorrow. Warrandyte are a much improved side over the past couple of months of action. They'll prove that tomorrow. The White Horse Pioneers will have a lot of fight in them. They'll be desperate to have a good win, but Warrandyte's just too classy on paper, and they'll win tomorrow. Here we go, Peterbed. Templestowe taking on Mitchum. A huge game for these two clubs. 7th versus 8th. A win is just a must.
It certainly is, and I reckon John Brown, the Templestowe coach, he'd be firing up every kettle he can find in the Brown house to see if he can get the Templestowe Dockers back on the boil, because they've gone off the boil over the last month of footy. Oh, no. Mitchum, though, they've been very gallant. Last week, they had their run of 5 consecutive wins interrupted when they went down to North Ringwood by only 3 points. Do the Tigers believe they're good enough to play finals footy? I think last week shows that belief has been instilled in the group by Scott Homewood. Anthony Falker was great. He kicked 3 goals. Lucas Marrow, fantastic for Mitchum last week, 5 goals. David Searle's been fantastic for them this year. Daniel Johnson's had a good year. I don't know whether or not Mitchum can take it to that next level, though, against a Dockers team who believe they should play finals, and I reckon they will, because I reckon they'll get over Mitchum. Guys like Jamie Baines back into fine form. He kicked 2 goals last week. He's been named in their best 7 times this year. Alistair Quinn, probably the recruit of the year across the whole Eastern Football League, been named in their best 12 times this year. Georgie Sarnides, he bleeds purple, green, red and white of the Templestowe Footy Club. He's the heart and soul of this team. He's been fantastic. Jamie Carpenter, another player that came across to him this year from the White Horse Pioneers, had a super year. I reckon Templestowe, they've got too much to play for. I reckon they're ready. I'm not quite sure whether Mitchum are. I'm going to tip the Dockers, even though they went down to Boronia by 30 points last week. Out at Porter Street, I reckon they can get a win and move back into the top 5.
Oh, you make a good case here for Templestowe, Pete, but you weren't out at Mitchum last weekend. I was, and I saw Mitchum put up a very, very impressive performance against North Ringwood. I reckon they'll be bleeding and really hurting from that loss, and they'll try and get every ounce out of themselves to try and get into the Choose Tap Final Series this season. I reckon they'll cause a bit of an upset out there at Templestowe. Tigers for mine. Doot, doot. All aboard the Caravan of Courage, because it is heading out to H.E. Parker Reserve this weekend, Dan Cencic. It's Heathmont taking on Ringwood. The winner basically gets a spot in the Choose Tap Final Series.
Massive, massive game for both sides. Ringwood are 5th on the ladder, Heathmont are 6th. Both locked on 10 wins, 7 losses for the year each. And both not too much separates them for and against in points. And with Wantirna South with a huge challenge tomorrow afternoon taking on North Ringwood, that 4th spot could be up for grabs for the winning team tomorrow afternoon. A quick congratulations to Daniel Baker, who plays his 250th game tomorrow afternoon. He's been a good player for them this season and for a very long time. You mentioned all aboard the media train. All aboard the Robbie Savoury train. He's really in good form for the Heathmont Jets, has kicked a few goals the last few weeks and got right involved in the footy, without Darren Sheen, of course. And I think not having Darren Sheen in the side has been somewhat of a good thing for Heathmont, because it's allowed them to kind of go through other options and discover maybe undiscovered talent. Anthony Hickey's been fantastic for them, but on the flip side of the coin, you just can't go past Ringwood at the moment. Luke Davis and Timothy Burmeister, red-hot form for them. And we mention them every week, but James Katsiavos and Trent Farmer, brilliant combination of goal kickers there. Over 100 goals between them so far this season. It's going to be really interesting to see which side rises to the occasion. I'm inclined to go with Heathmont because they've got the exposure of finals footy last season, of course, in the Division 4 finals series, and they know how important games are and what you need to do to stand up and win the finals-like matches. But I think Ringwood at the moment are going to realise how big a match this really is. If you look at their result from last weekend against the Glen Waverly Hawks, they were very disappointing. They need to stand up and make a statement this weekend. No better time to do it than to break in and cement their place in the finals.
Ringwood were very disappointing against the Glen Waverly Hawks last weekend. Talking to sources out there, Ringwood might have changed their game plan a little bit, which is a strange move so close to the Choose Tap final series. I think they'll bounce back against Heathmont. I like the combination of Katsiavos and Farmer up forward. Yes, no Sheen might be a good thing for Heathmont, but Ringwood, for mine, I think they're a little bit more classier on paper, particularly around the midfield area. Guys like Burmeister, I think, will lift for the game. Ringwood for mine, and are playing the Choose Tap final series. In the words of Andrea Pacelli, Peter Baird, it's time to say goodbye for the Glen Waverly Hawks, because they're saying goodbye to Capital Reserve on the weekend, and they take on Coldstream. A win here for the Glen Waverly Hawks, and they are every chance to finish on top of the Division 3 ladder.
And what a surprise that would be after being promoted from Division 4 last year without winning a flag. They've made the move up, and they've shown they've got what it takes this year in Division 3. As you said, the last game at Capital Reserve for the Glen Waverly Hawks before they moved down to Central Reserve, and what a fine establishment that is. I know the Glen Waverly Hawks are looking forward to that next year. A new ground, a new jumper, possibly a new division for the Glen Waverly Hawks if they can go all the way this year. That remains to be seen, but they're in fantastic form at the moment. Matty Carnelli, he's been great, whether he's kicking goals up forward, whether he's playing a midfield role that Mick Gall needs him to. Andrew Azzopardi, he's the quintessential switch man. He can either be the key forward or he can play key back. Sam Zickman, I reckon he'll go close to winning the Division 3 best and fairest this year. He's in and under, he's dynamic, he's got run and carry, he's got burst. He's the sort of player that catches the umpire's attention. The Samoan ballerina, Fia Tutu.
Yes.
He's returned back to the side and he adds another dimension to them, adds a bit of versatility to the Glen Waverly Hawks side. Look also this week for the return of a couple of players. The shooter, Brad Hunter, might be back in the Glen Waverly Hawks side, as may be Big Navinder Singh, the backup ruckman to Disco Danny Kenor. I reckon Glen Waverly Hawks, they're setting themselves for an assault at September. They're not going to have it all their own way, though, even though it is party time out at Capital Reserve for their last game. They come up against a Coldstream team that have only won 2 games for the year, but they've been in a lot more games than that. Johnny Pignataro, he's always their spearhead. He kicks goals week in, week out. Jake Usler's in great form for the Cougars as well. He's named in their best last week, and Lachlan Craig was best on ground for them. We know Matty Price's men, they'll have heart, they'll have soul. They don't want to get blown away because Whitehorse are behind them on the same number of wins. They don't want to hurt their percentage, although it is a bit of a gap between the two sides. I reckon they'll put up a credible effort, but I don't reckon it'll be enough to knock off the Glen Waverly Hawks. They're rolling towards September, and they'll start their assault on September, finishing off the home and away season with a good win.
I agree with you, Pete. Coldstream will make it a good game against the Glen Waverly Hawks, and it's always good when Coldstream play because the Pig, Johnny Pignataro, is one of the most watchable players out there, but unfortunately it won't be watchable, I think, for Coldstream fans in the second half. Glen Waverly Hawks will run away with it, and it will be a big party as they farewell Capital Reserve with a big win. Unbelievable round of Division 3 action coming your way tomorrow afternoon. Make sure you stick around on the EFL mobile web app and, of course, efl.org.au, and Twitter us at FootyEFL for all the results tomorrow afternoon. Let's have a look at Division 2. Dan Cencic, it's Doncaster versus Doncaster East. Doncaster need this one to avoid finishing on the bottom of Division 2.
Yeah, these two sides always put on a really classic match. As we saw last time, it came down to one of the last kicks of the afternoon for Doncaster East to get the points, so Doncaster will be out for redemption this time around. Look, both sides have been relatively good in patches this season. Doncaster have some real stars about their side, and I think their year hasn't done those stars the justice that they deserve. Ben Waterworth's man, another one. Josh Limachese, he's been in really good form for them this year. A great leading forward who'll be really hard to stop for Doncaster tomorrow afternoon. And Chris Anarkis, a brilliant player for them too. I think Sier Cavellis is one of their unsung heroes. He's a really good player in and around the packs and knows where the footy is. Matty Schimmelbusch, we can't go past him as well. Great player for Doncaster. But when you look at Doncaster East, Daniel Mead's a real goal sneak and a real worry for Doncaster tomorrow afternoon. He loves to rove the loose ball inside 50, sneak goals and trouble those opposition backmen. But Tim Whitty and Lee Murphy have been really hard working this season for them. Lee Murphy's a brilliant player for them and will go close to winning their best and fairest this season, I would think. Luke McLeod's one we don't mention too often, but I think he's been really good for them this season, named in the best 5 times. And I think tomorrow afternoon it will be those second-rung players for Doncaster East that will need to stand up if they're to get the points. But if we look at the ladder, you would say that Doncaster East will get the points tomorrow afternoon. I'm not so sure. I'm going to go for the upset. And Doncaster East are needing to bounce back this weekend after a pretty disappointing display against Roble, of course. Roble didn't kick 2 straight, so it could have been a lot worse for them. But Doncaster East are better than what they've showed last week. I'm going to go for them by about 2 goals.
I'm going for the Sharks here, Dan Cencic. I've just got a sneaky suspicion that the Sharks aren't done with Division 2 yet. Look for the likes of Anarkis, Batista, Galache, McKenzie's been very good pickup for them, Matty Schimmelbusch, Ben McGarmis, and my man, the cheese. Josh Limachese will have a good day out tomorrow. I reckon the Sharks, just to throw another spanner in the Division 2 works. It's Roble time, Peter Baird. I know you get very excited around this time of a Friday afternoon. It's Roble taking on Mulgrave, who got a bit of a reality check last weekend.
They certainly did, and I reckon this week might be all about trying to conserve their percentage in case Doncaster happen to get up over Doncaster East. The last thing Mulgrave need is to be blown away by Roble and find themselves sitting on the bottom of the Division 2 ladder with the prospect of possibly being relegated down to Division 3 next year. Last week, though, for Roble, we saw the return of their big spearhead, Cody Morris, back into the senior side. He kicked 3 goals. People were perhaps worried that it may make Roble a bit more conscious of Cody Morris, which has been a criticism of them over the last few years. But Roble answered they had 9 individual goal kickers. That's going to be no problems for them going forward. Nathan Hicks, he's had a super year. He's kicked 45 goals as that small forward, and he'll love feeding off the feet of Cody Morris tomorrow out at Seabeck Oval. Matty Davey, he's just hitting his straps at the business end of the year. Kicked 6 goals a fortnight ago, got amongst the goals again last week, named in their best, and Lukey Scanlon, he's really grasped the opportunity that Paul Minot's given him since he had to earn his spot back in the senior side, been named in the Roble best the last 2 weeks. Roble, though, they need to shut down Tim Knowles. Is this the last game we see Tim Knowles in a Mulgrave jumper before he moves on to bigger and better things? Mulgrave will be looking to give him a bit of a send-off. I'm not sure whether Roble at home at Seabeck Oval are going to make it easy for Mulgrave to do that. Really liked the year this year of Jake Ryle for the Roble Footy Club, a player that's joined the Hawks this year after coming across from Scoresby. He's been fantastic. And my man BT, Brendan Walsh, he's been super, moving from backline to forward line wherever he's needed. I just reckon Roble want to finish on top of the ladder. To do that, they need to knock off Mulgrave. They'll be looking for a big win. Mulgrave might send players behind the ball to protect their percentage out there at Seabeck Oval, but I still think Roble will have a very convincing win.
I agree with you, Pete. Roble should win this one quite comfortably. I also agree with you. I reckon it's the last time we'll see Tim Knowles in an Eastern Football League jumper, but Mulgrave won't give him a great send-off because Roble will win very comfortably. The Waverly Blues caused the upset of Division 2 last weekend thanks to a little bit of Robbie Hartfield heroics, Dan Cencic. Can they repeat it against Bayswater, who are now almost set in the Division 2 Choose Tap Final Series?
Yeah, Bayswater are in 4th place and really need to win tomorrow afternoon to just cement themselves a little bit more in that 4th place on the ladder. Of course, though, Donvale sit just below them and don't have an easy game against Merlebrook, so it'll be really interesting to see how the results go there. Bayswater the last few weeks have been up and down, up and down. They thoroughly deserved their win against Donvale, but the week after that was a bit of a letdown for them. One player that's really been pivotal in Bayswater's season this year has been Brent Jane. A backman and a forward, can play both roles. And the thing with Brent Jane is whenever he plays back, he does a fantastic job. Whenever he goes forward, he knows what the backman's going to do, and he knows how to use his body to best advantage to make sure he clunks those marks and kicks those goals. Neil Winterson's been an absolute revelation for Bayswater this season. He's been really good on and off the field for them. He's got the boys up and about. And Matty Hayhurst's been a really handy inclusion for Bayswater. There were a few weeks there where he didn't play, and Bayswater were able to find other options to goal, and that's carried through even when he's been back in the side, because Matty Hayhurst has been playing somewhat of a different role perhaps. But look at the Waverly Blues. Robbie Hartfield's goal after the siren last weekend did make one of the biggest upsets of the Division 2 season to date so far. But Thomas Harley's been in fantastic form for the Waverly Blues, as has Glen Marnie, and Chinston's been fantastic for them, named in the best 11 out of 17 times. I'm not sure the Waverly Blues will have the tank to go with the midfielders of Bayswater, the Burmeister kinds, and of course Joel Galvin, who really loves to do that grunt work and feed it out to the running midfielders of Bayswater. I'm going to go for Bayswater relatively comfortably in this one. They're starting to hit some good form and will be right for the season finals.
I agree with you, Dan. Bayswater, I think now believe that they can play in the Division 2 Finals series. They should get a good victory tomorrow, led by the likes of Joel Galvin. Bayswater for mine. Last chance saloon for Donvale tomorrow in true Friday preview traditional style, Peter Baird. But they take on Mulgrave, who I think will make it very tough for them.
Donvale are the sort of team that like to be the hunter, not the hunted. They've sat in 4th position for the last 7 weeks on their Division 2 ladder. Teams like Bayswater have been coming at them. That's when they were playing their best footy. In the last month, after winning 5 games in a row, they've lost their last 4 to drop out of that top 4 so far in Division 2. This week, they need to win to get back into the top 4. Maybe it's a different mindset that Billy McCormick might be able to instill into his team as they head out to the mud at Heights Reserve to take on Mulgrave. I don't know what they're going to need to do. They haven't been able to secure their final spot. They haven't been able to lock it away. And I reckon this week they're not going to be able to do it against Mulgrave. Matty Polkinghorn's been fantastic this year for Mulgrave. Ben Mullet's in their best again last week. He's a fantastic player. The big kids kicked 73 goals, including 4 last week. James McManus through their midfield has been fantastic. And Luke Shivers, he's a great player. He loves playing at Mulgrave Footy Club. I reckon Mulgrave will have too much class for a very disappointing Donvale side over the last month. Andrew Pettigrove's tried hard for them. Hayden Cotsford's been doing a good job. And the caveman, Zach Tarr, he's been super. Last week, Nick Murphy kicked 4 goals to take his season total to 40. I don't reckon it's going to be enough, though, to get Donvale into the finals. I reckon a loss at the hands of Mulgrave tomorrow afternoon is going to be the death knell for the Donvale Football Club's final chances. Mulgrave to win out at Heights Reserve.
Donvale have been too hard to read over the past 2 months or so. A pretty disappointing past month in particular, while Mulgrave are charging towards the finals. Mustangs for mine at home. Final game in Division 2, Dan, is Upper Ferntree Gully hosting Montrose. Montrose want finals. Upper Ferntree Gully want the end of the season.
Montrose will be out for blood tomorrow afternoon, there's no doubt about it, with Mulgrave playing Donvale in a very winnable game there. Montrose's second spot on the ladder is at stake tomorrow afternoon, and they must win this game. Montrose had a very comfortable win last weekend against Doncaster. Did it pretty easily in the end with Cook and Schilling, 6 between them. Brett Johnson even got involved. He's got the boys up and about this season. He kicked 3 goals as well. Upper Ferntree Gully took it right up to the Bayswater side last weekend. They trailed by a fair bit at half-time, but to their credit, they really pinned them back in those last 2 quarters of footy and almost pinched an upset. Upper Ferntree Gully players like Matthew Petrarca and Jay Sherlock have been in really good form this season so far. And of course, Tim Risley, the captain, has been in blistering form. He's done wonders for their midfield and is a really good player for them. Good to see some players like Godfrey and Ryan Minahan get involved in the best players last weekend for Upper Ferntree Gully. They'll need to stand up again tomorrow afternoon if Upper Ferntree Gully or any chance of knocking off an informed Montrose side. But if we turn our attention to Montrose, you can't go past them. Billy Schilling, 68 goals for the year. Adam Cook's been fantastic for them as well. And Brett Johnson, Sam Goodman, fantastic player for them too. So I just think Montrose will be too strong tomorrow, and we'll do this one by about 5 goals.
I agree with you, Dan. Montrose are in too good a form to pick against them. Demons easily. There you have it, a thorough analysis of all Division 2 action. If you want Division 2 live around the ground scores, make sure you get your hands on the EFL mobile web app or follow us on Twitter at FootyEFL, or of course check www.efl.org.au at 5:30pm. Let's have a look at the big boys of Division 1, starting with the big game between Scoresby and South Croydon. The Doggies have been okay in the past couple of weeks, but they're coming up against Scoresby, Pete, who you really rate.
I do. I've had a look at Scoresby the last 2 weeks in a row, and they've knocked off fellow top 5 sides in Vermont and Bournemouth in consecutive weeks. I reckon they might get a little bit of a reprieve this week with a slightly easier game coming up against the Doggies out at Scoresby Recreation Reserve. The thing I've liked about Scoresby, they can adapt their game plan, they can change things up, and they're very, very good at it. Scott White's got this team playing very disciplined brand of football. They run hard through the middle, they tackle hard, they deprive sides of space, they're strong and they're tough. You look at their midfield, guys like Adam Parker, Sean Cross, David Marcius, Brenton Legg, they're all great players through that middle. But their forwards, they're in fantastic form as well. Jared Hicks, he got amongst the goals last week. And the return of Chris Hogle to the senior side, he was super. He kicked 3 goals for them in their victory over Borwin. But the big player that caught my attention, and big he is, was big Lukey Van Reenen. He not only dominated in the ruck, but also around the ground. He showed a versatility and a mobility I haven't seen from the big man before. I don't think South Croydon have the answer to try and nullify his influence on the game. For them, the key's going to be to try and get as much ball down to Trent Zoma, and him kick as many goals as possible to try and put a bit of scoreboard pressure on Scoresby. Ben Wilson's return to the Scoresby side this week. He's going to be the man that stands Zoma down there at fullback. I don't think Jared Major's got the size to take Zoma. Scoresby will also be looking to try and minimise the supply that South Croydon can get down there. I just reckon Scoresby, they're a team setting themselves after playing in the last 2 grand finals without any prize at the end of it. They're looking to go that one step further this year. Out at Scoresby Recreation Reserve, the 23rd man for the Scoresby player is that crowd out there. Scott White described that to his playing group last week when he tried to get them up and over the Borwin when they were down at half-time. I reckon he won't need that influence this week because Scoresby will bolt it in against the Doggies at home.
I agree, Pete. Scoresby are one of the form teams in Division 1 at the moment. The thing that blows me away about Scoresby is that they've had 18 players who have played 14 to 16 games. That's phenomenal consistency and a pretty darn good run of injuries as well. Scoresby very easily tomorrow. Probably game of the round in Division 1, Dan Cencic, is a dead rubber between Blackburn and Knox. Will be interesting to see who has the motivation with only 2 rounds left in the home and away season.
Yeah, it's 9th versus 10th, and obviously neither side can make the finals. But I'll tell you what, these 2 sides have been impressive at stages this season. They didn't come more impressive than Blackburn last week against Noble Park, knocking off one of the premier sides in Division 1 by 5 points. I can't say I didn't see it coming, though, because this season Blackburn have been really impressive against some of the better sides, Baldwin type of sides, and, of course, Inform Willowdale a few weeks ago. So Blackburn have really been able to really give those better sides in Division 1 a lot of trouble this season. And it was through players like Graham Johns, Michael Prendergast, Sam McCauley, who have stood up for them time and time again this season. And it'll be really interesting to see if Samuel McCauley goes to Ryan Jeffrey tomorrow afternoon. Ryan Jeffrey, of course, the very handy Knox forward, can take a screamer, can kick goals, can take marks. Works well defensively as well against Samuel McCauley, who made the Division 1 SCN Team of the Year last season as a defender. But one player that Blackburn have really missed this year, I think, has been Paul Bunn. Paul Bunn loves to give Samuel McCauley a bit of a chop out in defence, and they've really missed that with a lot of sides kicking some pretty heavy scores against them. Players like George Stuckey for Knox has been pretty good this season, being able to do a lot of the grunt work. And, of course, Brandon McKeer across that half-back line for Knox has been good too. Loves to lock the ball into Knox's half of the field and really give the opposition a lot of headaches, which will mean tomorrow afternoon players like Graham Johns and Christian Height, forwards for Blackburn, will need to chase hard if there any chance of shutting Brandon McKeer down, because he loves to set up the play from that half-back line for Knox. We mentioned before the game's a dead rubber, but it doesn't take any less motivation out of the game. I think Blackburn on form, you can't go past them. After they knock off Noble Park, one might argue they might be a bit flat this weekend after a really good victory last week. But Knox disappointing against Vermont, so they'll need to bounce back. But I think Blackburn only just based on last week's form.
I agree with you, Dan. Based on last week's result, Blackburn should be able to get the chocolates. But I need to pay tribute again to Brad Murray. His consistency has been amazing this year. 14 times named the best out of 16 games. He's a star, and Blackburn should get the chocolates with Graham Johns having another good day out. It's a bird battle, Peter Baird. It's Vermont taking on Lilydale out there at Tarara Road. Vermont will want a better result than the last time they played out at Tarara Road a fortnight ago.
They certainly will. But they come up against a very, very honest team in Lilydale. A team that made that step up from having been relegated to Division 2 last year. That was a shock to the system for the Falcons. And they responded by winning the Division 2 premiership and coming straight back up. They've got a lot of heart and soul about this Lilydale Football Club. Guys like Robbie Allen with his damaging left foot running through the middle. He's been great this year. Daniel Breeze, he's just a star. We say it week in, week out. Ash Davies and Jakey Taylor, they've had great years. Dean Carswell's in great form as well for the Falcons. And big Nathan O'Keefe, he might hold the key for their chances tomorrow. But how can you resist a Vermont side that have got a bit of their swagger back? Adrian Galino, returning to the seniors, kicked 5 last week. He had to earn his spot back through consistent performances in the reserves. We've heard Chris Barlow say there's a lot of pressure coming from the Vermont reserves, who are on top of the ladder and flying at the moment. Dean Millhouse has been super. He's just, you know what you're going to get week in, week out with Dean Millhouse. And David Leung, he's been a bit of a revelation for them. He's hard, he's in and under, and he can go forward and kick goals. I reckon we give the Chandler medal right now, though, to Ryan Mullett. He's had a super year. He's in their best every week, if not named the best Vermont player. I just reckon he's a class above anything Lilydale have got. They can't shut him down, I don't think, tomorrow. And along with players like Dean Kelly and Lachlan Johns, who will get involved, I think Vermont might run away with a win out there to finish off Lilydale's year.
The most impressive thing about Vermont this year has been their depth. They actually quite comfortably lead the Division 1 BJS Champion Club award. So fantastic effort by the Eagles there. I think they'll prove that depth tomorrow with the team performance and the team victory over Lilydale. A good win coming up for the Eagles. The big Trojan workhorse will be out at East Burwood Reserve tomorrow for the big clash between East Burwood and Noble Park. Should be a great crowd, but I think it should be a good win for Noble Park. You'd think, Dan.
Some real mouth-watering matchups here for this game, there's no doubt about it. And it's hard to believe it's actually 6th versus 5th on the Division 1 ladder. It's really interesting how footy can change so quickly. I mean, a month or so ago we were saying East Burwood would finish lower after they hit some really poor form, but then they picked themselves up and found some really great form. And the last time these two sides played, Noble Park got the chocolates, of course, but East Burwood are heavily favoured to knock them off that day. But for Noble Park this season, they've been ravaged by injuries. There's no doubt about it. They've used a hell of a lot of players this year, but they've still been able to get the results on the board. Not so last week, though. They went down to Blackburn in what many would describe as an upset. But, I think it's a loss they need to have just before the finals to kind of bring them back to earth a bit and throw a few spanners in the works come finals time. I'd really love to see Anthony Mariani match up on George Angelopoulos. Maybe Anthony Mariani doing a defensive job on George Angelopoulos, or Angelopoulos doing a defensive job on Anthony Mariani. I think Mariani has the tank to go with Angelopoulos. They need to pay full attention to him. Since he's slotted back into the side, he's been in really good form. Robbie Campbell versus Big Chucky Manson in the ruck should be a cracking matchup as well. Both players have been in good form this season. I think the ruck contest will be all important tomorrow afternoon to feed those midfielders first use of the ball. We can't not mention Tyson Mitchum, though. He's been in fantastic form for Noble Park too this season. He's my tip for the Leader Young Gun Award. After coming back from the VFL, he's really done wonders, slotting in nicely back at Noble Park. Been a really good player to watch for them this season. But I think, I'm with you, Ben Waterworth. Noble Park will get this job done on their way to the Division 1 final series.
Bit of a wake-up call for Noble Park last weekend with a last-minute loss to Blackburn. I think they'll bounce back with a good victory against East Burwood tomorrow. Your last game you're going to have a look at, Peter Baird, it's Baldwin taking on Croydon out there at Baldwin SEN Park. You'd think the Tigers should do this pretty easily.
Yeah, you might think that, but maybe not. I've just got a sneaking suspicion about Croydon tomorrow. They were only a goal down against Norwood at half-time last week before the Norsemen finally got on top in the second half. Baldwin, they've got a few injury concerns they're going to take into this game. Their big ruckman, Scotty Houghton, he broke a finger last week, sat the second half of the game out on the pine. He may be an unlikely starter, as may be Luke Barker, who pulled a hamstring. I don't think he'll take his spot in the Baldwin side tomorrow afternoon. You throw in Rod Crow, who missed last week with an injury as well. Baldwin have just got a few injury worries of their own going into this game. Croydon will be looking to finish the year off in fantastic form. We know how good their top players are. We say it week in, week out. Guys like Justin Ficarelli, Lee Kimpton, Dale Ball, James Grant, Andrew Hughes, Brad Callagher. They've got a bit of class, and they can probably take it up to Baldwin. I reckon the fact that it's out at SEN, Baldwin Park, might see Baldwin just scrape over the line. Jeff Goebbels, I don't think Croydon have the answer. Maybe Brad Callagher's the man that goes to him. But Goebbels, he was probably the dominant forward on the ground in Baldwin's loss to Scoresby last week. Shane Tregear had a little bit of a quiet game. He'll be looking to bounce back. His left foot's so damaging as he sends the ball inside the Baldwin 4 and 50 line. Ryan McMahon, he was a little bit down as well last week. He'll be looking to bounce back. I really liked the game though last week of Liam Fraser and John Milhausen. Two players that got involved from half-back, ran through the middle. I reckon Baldwin, they will win, although I was being a little bit cheeky saying Croydon might take it up to them. Baldwin will show why they will play in the finals this year in Division 1. They should have a comfortable win, but I expect Croydon to take it right up to them for perhaps a half. Baldwin, though, by about 5 to 6 goals.
Oh, you're a cheeky man, Peter Baird. But in my opinion, Baldwin should be too classy despite their injury woes. They've got too much to play for at this time of year. They should win comfortably. Final game of Division 1. It's another wood battle in Division 1. It's Norwood hosting East Ringwood. Daniel Cencic.
And it's first on the ladder versus 8th. One side, Norwood, has been in cracking form all season long. Up against the side, East Ringwood, who's been ravaged by injuries. There's no doubt about it. Injuries is not an excuse. It's a fact in our game that too many injuries to a side can derail the season. That's exactly what's going on. But look, last week, East Ringwood stood up against expectation, of course, against the Lillydale, who have been no well-beaters this season in Division 1, but they've been in good form nonetheless. Players like Gary Conyers stood up for them, as did Brendan Hollowick. Andrew Renton got in amongst it, as did Adam Gibson. But for Norwood, we just can't go past them at the moment. David Johnson's been in really good form, as is Brent English. Up forward, the pair of them are really, really dangerous. And of course, it's good to see Nick Edge back in the side. Nick Edge last weekend was fantastic as well. I watched him earlier in the season, and he loves to get the hard ball and feed it out to their running midfielders. He does all the hard work down there at Norwood. Good on him. But look, East Ringwood, they're going to need to really stand up against some of those more handy players we mentioned for Norwood. I can't see Norwood dropping this one. The finals are just around the corner. Kevin Tibaldi's got the team up and about. There's too much on the line. Minor premiers will go to Norwood this season, and they will get the job done tomorrow afternoon.
Good win to East Ringwood last weekend, finally getting back on the winners list against the Lillydale, but unfortunately they come up against Norwood, the top side in Division 1, at their home ground. Any player wanting a wet t-shirt competition tomorrow will not get one because it's going to be very dirty as they walk off the field. Norwood for mine. There you have it, all 22 games of Divisions 1, 2, 3, 4, done and dusted, thorough in-depth analysis, accurate analysis as well. Make sure you check out efl.org.au or the EFL mobile web app or our Twitter account at FootyEFL to keep up to date with all the scores around the ground tomorrow. Make sure you tune in also to 98.1 Radio Eastern tomorrow afternoon or stream us live on efl.org.au for EFL Game Day. It's the Sheenless Heathmont going up against Ringwood at HG Parker Reserve. It's the Parker Family Cup, but more importantly, I think, a spot in the Division 3 Finals Series, the Choose Tap Finals Series, is up for grabs.
And make sure you tune in to EFL Sunday from 10 a.m. till 12 p.m, where we chat to the winning coaches from across the Eastern Football League. EFL Sunday, proudly sponsored by Akira Urgent Care.
And for your midweek EFL fix, don't forget the light-hearted look at the Eastern Football League with the Huddle next Wednesday night between 6 and 7 p.m. on 98.1 Radio Eastern FM.
It's been a pleasure going through all the games this Friday afternoon ahead of what is a huge round of EFL action tomorrow afternoon. Thank you to you, Dan Cencic.
It's always a pleasure, Ben Waterworth. Love going through the games every Friday afternoon.
Looking forward to your words of wisdom tomorrow afternoon, Peter Baird. Thanks for your words of wisdom now.
Can't wait to get out to HE Parker Reserve for that Parker Family Cup, the big clash between Heathmont and Ringwood tomorrow afternoon.
This has been the Friday Preview. I've been Ben Waterworth, and as a wise man once said, stick a fork in us, we're done.